difficult thing emotionally, and our guys hung in there. Our next man in mantra was on display. I'd always wanted to get all the Weeks boys in the game, and I did. I just didn't get them all at the same time. And that's having the the vision to know that depth is going to be counted on. And Devon Keys came in, played a great game in Witt's absence. He went from 42 plays the week before to 88. And so just to be prepared to step in and do the kind of job he did, I thought was outstanding. Obviously, from an SEC standpoint, Deshaun Spears was named the Defensive SEC Player of the Week, deservingly so. He was really good and has been in our nickel coverage. Read the eyes of the quarterback, stole one, brought it back for a touchdown, and had another interception later. So really, really pleased with his performance. The rest really is the flow of the game. Going back to after watching the film and being able to answer the question from an offensive line standpoint and running the football, where we've got to get better is technically. Our guys are playing hard. They are locked in. We've got to be better in terms of technique. This is a big week for us, in terms of developing the technique and the experience that we have, and still being consistent with running the football. And I was happy with that. Our play calling never put us in a situation where we were so far behind the chains that it became a situation where we put the ball in harm's way. We've got to convert some third down situations. So when we look at this from a bigger picture standpoint, third down conversions are really what we need to do a better job with, third and short in particular. So that's the work that we'll see a lot of moving forward because we're going to be in a number of those situations. So that's Florida. We move on to Southeastern. Look, there's a number of guys on this roster that are going to be playing here in Tiger Stadium with an edge. And what's important for us is to prepare this week with a sense of urgency. Based upon my comments here, there's some things that we've got to get better at. And not just on offense. It's offense, defense, and special teams. So this is an important week for us because after this, we get into a gauntlet of games with SEC opponents. So get better this week in practice. Have a sense of urgency. So when we perform on Saturday, we're putting out a great performance. And that, to me, is the most important thing relative to our preparation. Coach Selfo, I've known for a long time. He's an outstanding coach. He's certainly well acquainted with the state of Louisiana. And certainly they've coming off a nice victory this past weekend against Mississippi Valley. Again, they run a couple of quarterbacks. This is an offense that, we're going to need to be one-dimensional. Again, looking to stop the run. And then from a defensive standpoint, they get some really good players. The Proctor kid is an outstanding player, very twitchy. He's a lot like our guy, Gooden. He is active, tackles for a loss. And Reno, the linebackers all over the field. So they've got good players. They're going to be excited about this opportunity. We have to work on ourselves this week with that sense of urgency and working on the technical part, the tactical part, so we put a great performance together on Saturday. So we'll open it up to questions.
Following up on two of the things you just talked about with the offense, how do you get better technically up front, as you said, and when third down, what's the approach to try to fix that at this point right now?
Well, our efficiency has been pretty good. I think it's more specific about short yardages. And the short yardages of the year is, as you know, we had a couple of them where we came up right short at the sticks. I think that's just continued to have an emphasis in our week of preparation on short yardage inventory plays, right? Because last year we were going for it on fourth down. That's my whole point. Last year we were taking the analytics and running that as a third and a fourth down play. So if we got to, 4th and 1, we were going, But this year I'm playing it a little bit different based upon the strength of our defense. Last year we needed to score more points. Now, as we move forward, we're going to need to do both, right? So I think that's really about how we operate in the week of practice in terms of developing an inventory. These are our plays. This is what we're going to look at in third and short situations. We just have to continue to develop. We're playing a redshirt freshman at right tackle, and we're playing a group of guys that are playing together. Paul hasn't played a ton. Cohen hasn't played a ton. Tyree hasn't played a ton. So these are guys that are still growing and developing. And I said this after the game, I'm bullish on this group. I think they're going to be really good. As we can continue to develop, they're going to be a good group, but we got some work to do.
Coach Garrett Nussmeier, are there some mechanics and things that maybe he's gotten away from that he needs to refine a little bit, or what do you see out of him?
I'll be honest, and I wasn't going to get into this, but with you guys I will. He's been slowed a little bit with a torso injury, and he's fighting through it, and he's getting better. And he's not going to be able to really shut it down until we get to the bye week. And I'm not saying that has had any of his troubles. I think he is a symptom of what I just answered from Wilson in that, we're not ripping it, on fourth down. We're taking some plays away from him as well. And he's done a really good job. I think he managed the run game as well as he has all year. We got to let him get the ball out to the playmakers. That would be more of what has to happen. And then we've got to keep him healthy. That's the most important thing.
You mentioned after the game that you might use more I formation. You don't have a fullback on the roster. So what do you do at fullback?
Well, I mean, when we're fully, loaded relative to our personnel, you can use your tight end in that position. And a lot of times he is today. Matt, the tight end in the NFL really is the fullback. Very few have a fullback on the roster unless he's just a, outstanding special teams player as well. But the point I'm making is we need to get into formational looks that allow us to have the best success in third and short when everybody in the building knows you're going to run the football. And so whether that's a fullback or whether that's two backs in the backfield, whether that's, running the quarterback, all of those things have to be on the table. Pyburn looked really good at fullback. I don't think we're going to change his role to just fullback, but certainly could play on both sides of the ball.
I have a question about the defense.
Yeah.
Just can you kind of clean some things up with Witt? Is he available? And then just elaborate a little bit more on West. And then the rest of that room, how much they did step up and kind of hold the rope there.
Yeah, I think, Witt's situation is kind of what I talked about, right? And had a conversation. That's something that we're going to have to deal with after the season when it comes to rules and things of that nature. We all know, I think we all understand what targeting looks like, but trying to make a play on a runner and he ducks his head and you make a tackle, to throw a guy out of the game for that, obviously you've heard my feelings about it, and I think there's a lot of people that agree. So he'll be back, right? He'll be able to play this weekend. West was a calf injury. I said to our staff in the meeting, to Blake, it was a gastroc injury, and he's a Tulane grad, but he still didn't know what a gastroc was. So I thought that was a good thing for a defensive coordinator not to know that. But anyway, it's a strain, so it's the same thing, right? Is it a first degree, second degree? It just depends on how he responds. He'll be back out on the field, whether he's ready to go. I think we've listed him as questionable. We don't have to do that, obviously, because it's not an SEC, but I think he's questionable. We'll see how it goes during the week. And finally, I'm sorry. Look, I'm piling on, right, to your question. But you mentioned about depth, right? And I want to mention him again. Devon Key's coming in. Tylen Singleton coming in. Those guys had to step up for us in a big moment. We got a lot going on. We're calling blitzes, simulated pressures, and those kids did a really nice job.
Coach, with Garrett and with the passing offense in general, how much of what you guys are trying to do with the passing offense is also kind of a reflection on the state of your offensive line and, wanting to help those guys as they, try to gel and come together?
Yeah, look, I would be honest with you. We didn't give up a sack, and that is a really good defense. That is a really good defense. So I'm pleased there. I mean, if we need to go out there and throw the ball 50 times, we're capable of doing that. I'm not sure I want to play that way, nor do we have to. Now, there's going to be some times in the SEC we're going to have to score more than 20 points. Let's get that straight. I think we all know that. So this is about continuing to develop the areas that need that work, and it's our running game. I believe we can throw the football every down if we need to, and I believe that we can protect effectively. So this is really about trying to work on your weaknesses and develop them as we go through this week and moving forward.
No specifics, but are you happy with the start of your 2027 recruiting class?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. It gives you a glimpse at, obviously they watch our defense play. A lot of those guys, the defensive commits were there. Obviously, we have some offensive commits there that are exceptional, and I still think there's more out there for us. So pretty excited about the momentum.
Brian, your offense this year has probably been at its best with a little bit quicker tempo and no huddle. How do you decide how to balance that without wearing your defense out?
It's a great question, and we felt the same way, right? That maybe we were trying to be too perfect, right, in our play calls. Let's just go play. Let those guys get the ball in space and play. And the same thing with Garrett, doing a little bit too much, checking every play. He's so smart. I mean, he can manage the whole thing, but sometimes, less is more. And I think as you continue to go, into the fourth week, we're developing what that identity should look like from an offensive standpoint.
Obviously, there's a lot of aspects on offense, coaches, players, and whatnot. But for those who are critical of Joe Sloan and the job he's doing as the offensive coordinator, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I had to answer questions of being critical with Blake last year, right? I mean, he is doing what he's asked to do to manage the games the way we need to. We have a top 10 defense, I believe, in the country. And we need to play to that strength. And so sometimes you have to pull back a little bit here and there. He's being a great coach from that perspective. Because, look, offensive coordinator, they want to score points too. But sometimes I'm tapping the brakes here a little bit in those situations. Because that's going to be the identity of this football team.
Going back to the targeting situation.
Yep.
Should there be the equivalent on that, like you have in basketball, of a flagrant 1, flagrant 2?
Stop making sense. I feel the same way. Here's what happens. When that argument is made, right, unfortunately on the other end, they immediately say, well, targeting is down, concussions are down. But a guy sat out a game, and I don't know how to coach him differently. I don't know what to tell him to do differently. And you're going to throw him out of the game. That makes no sense to me. So I think common sense at some time has got to get involved in targeting. And if common sense gets involved, maybe we'll get an answer. This is a story that I'll talk to you off the record. But I have been very vocal on this issue, and to the point where they know where I stand. And so I think this is really a discussion that's going to have to take place after the season when, I'm going to say it again, like-minded people that have common sense look at it and go, okay, that's not what really targeting is.
Coach, the torso situation with Garrett, has that affected the play calling strategically
No.
at all? Okay.
No, come Saturday, he's good to go. We've limited him a little bit during the week because of some tightness that he's had in his torso. It's an upper body injury that you want to be careful with how many reps he's getting throwing the football. So he's overcoming that, but we cut him down substantially. I think he's on the other side of that, but we had to be really careful with him the first few weeks.
So it eventually may go away, or
Oh yeah, and I think with the bye week after Ole Miss, we should be in a great place.
And Coach, over here, obviously the safety room has become a major strength for the team defensively, and AJ and Tamarcus, the way that they played as well has been a strength, but a breakout performance from Deshaun, how does that kind of factor in with a breakout performance like that to give him some more playing time?
Well, I think for Deshaun, more than anything else, confidence, right? You know, people ask me all the time, well, how do you build confidence in your group? Go make a play. Well, he made a couple. And so I think his confidence will grow, and with that confidence growing, I think we'll continue to see his growth. Because if you've got 3, 4 with Jordan Gilbert, who's an experienced player, now you put yourself in a really good position there.
I just want to ask, you took one for the team the other night, calling the timeout. How many times has that happened to you in your career?
First time in 35 years. I got my butt kicked. I know a lot of people were happy with that. But I'm telling you, it's kind of an awkward situation because I was running down the sideline to call a timeout because, as you know, we ran the ball, and Caden bounced outside, and he didn't get out of bounds, so the clock was running. So I just was running to get to the official, and Weston Davis and one of their linebackers was locked up. I never saw him, and I ended up in the first row. Nobody wanted to pick me up either, which I thought was crazy, but it got me pretty good. I don't want to be flippant and say that I was in the concussion protocol because that's a serious thing, but I probably could have been.
You bounced right back up, though, right?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that story. I bounced right back up.
Sorry, just to follow up again on Nuss, when did that happen?
In camp. Yeah, in camp. And it's a product of a lot of throws. He worked a lot this summer, a lot of throws. This was really about more of a management and shutting him down a little bit during the week. And I think, as I said, I think he's on the other side of it, but we had to be careful with him.
Sorry to keep harping on it, but I'm just trying to clarify, like, is that something that has affected the downfield passing game in any way, in-game?
No, but we don't, you're not working on it as much in practice. So, when you get your shots, you want to be able to take them, but we're not doing it a lot in practice. We're starting to pick up that pace. We started a little bit last week. We'll continue to pick it up more this week.
I don't want to speak for you, but taking it back to Saturday, I think maybe what you were trying to explain to me was maybe managing expectations a little bit. I guess in hearing what you're saying about the offensive approach that you're going with going forward, I'm just curious, how does that play with the team, especially the offense, and super skilled wide receiver room that you have that maybe now they have to maybe adjust their expectations as well?
Yeah, I think if you look at the way we've utilized all of those receivers, we're all getting them involved. I think we got to get Chris Hilton involved more, right? In the vertical passing game. But I guess what I was trying to say more than anything else is that from an offensive standpoint, we know what we have as a team. And I'll give you an example, and maybe I shouldn't even do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I walked into the post-game locker room with our coaches. And you can imagine our defensive coaches were pretty happy, right? They were pretty happy. Our offensive coaches were really reserved and maybe expecting that they were going to get the paint peeled off the room. And I said, listen, this is how you win games. You have to manage games, and this one we managed. Last year, the stats were the exact opposite against Florida, and we lost that game. This was about managing a game, and at the end of the day, my job is to win football games for LSU. That's how we had to win the game, and that's what I was referring to more than anything else is, yeah, I know it didn't look the way it wants to be, but trust me, that offense is going to have to score a ton of points at some time during the year, and we're going to have to turn that loose because our defense might just not play as well as they have been playing. We have a great defense, and when we get into games like that, I'm going to make sure that we minimize any of the mistakes that could be made on offense.
You kind of just alluded to it, but did last year's result at Florida, in particular their defensive pressure, affect your game plan going in, or is the way the game played out strategically just because of how the game was playing out?
I'll give you an example. Going into the game, they played 3 down 4% of the time. In this game, they played it 54% of the time. We have to be able to learn on the run and adapt. And we have some young guys that are playing for the first time that are learning and adapting as they go. Now, that's on coaching too. Like, when I go in there and you tell me that 4% of the fronts are over Joel, which is their 3-down look, I'm like, okay, well, then that should be reflected in how much they see it during the week, right? We saw it almost 54% of the time. And there were some things that we struggled with the 4 technique. The 4 technique is hard to cut off. The 4 technique is hard to double team up to the next level. That's on us. As coaches, we got to be better in those situations. But our guys are going to be better because they're learning those things and adapting to those things on a day-to-day basis.
Specifically with the downfield passing attack, has it been a little bit more difficult to sort of generate that given just the state of this developing offensive line?
No, I really, in answering your question earlier, I'm really pleased with our protection. I think it's a strength. The 2 tackles are really good. Their kick slide, their ability to stay square, those were really good ends. I mean, they're SEC top-tiered players on that defensive side of the ball. That's a rugged group, as good as we're going to see. They're rugged. Clemson was really good, too, and we protected the quarterback well. So it's not really about an issue, Koki, of we don't feel like we can protect them. I think it's more about, I think we're trying to be perfect, and we don't have to. Catch it, get it out, let's go. And a little bit more of that, I think, is what we should be about, and then we will be. Good, thank you. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you.